Mondovino. Well, when I introduced the Guided by Wine Club with Rainer a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned this documentary movie. Well, the reason is because it created a pro in the world of wine, really. And we're talking about 2004, if I remember correctly, more or less 20 years ago. Well, actually, the film itself did not say anything essentially new, but what it did was to brought to the idea, the topic, and the new idea of wine to the attention of a wider audience. Those years, 2004, 2006, at the beginning of 2000, they were here when the new generation of wine lovers, the young wine lovers, start to have a different idea about wine, start to conceive a different idea about wine, far away from the monopoly of taste of the large international producers. So what's happened is that I can, okay, something doesn't work. I'm trying. Okay, probably now it's working. So, sorry. So there was this new generation that was forming throughout the world. And their idea was a new philosophy about wine. Also, the approach was more philosophical and also, let's say, in Italy, we say more green, more environmentalistic way, more related with the nature. That were people that firmly believe, they really believe that the wine produced by the small winemakers, like this guy that we see now on the slides, this is a winemaker, wine grower from Bordeaux, very small wine grower, is a part of the movie Mondovino. So the wine produced by this small producer winemaker could be the answer to what? To the standardization of taste and aromas, desire, invented, and followed by the large producer and the great international winemakers. When I talk about great international winemakers, I'm talking about people like this man here in the slides. His name is Michel Rolland, is a guru of wine. It was a fantastic winemaker. And what it's saying in this slide is if she understood everything, she wouldn't need me anymore. And this is true. This was the idea of these winemakers. I'm coming and I teach you, actually, I tell you how to make your wine if you want to sell your wine. This was the idea. Beyond the movie, by the way, which of course help consumer to understand that there is not only one wine, the wine of these people, the wine of the big multinational, the wine of the guru winemakers, but there exist millions of good, fantastic wines produced by small producers, and also help the consumer. And this is very important to understand that the standardization of flavors comes from what? From chemical practices. The slides that we are seeing now is the laboratory of Michel Rolland. If you read 400 locals clients, 400 local clients, locals only in Bordeaux, these people, this laboratory used to work worldwide. So we are talking about the influence of this laboratory or many other laboratories. Now we are talking about this because we are talking about Mondovino, but there are many of these laboratories that they're used to suggest and in some way probably produce, make the wine worldwide. So people understand that these flavors and these smells, these aromas that were created in the laboratory, or by the way, at least by invasive intervention during the winemaking or during the aging. What does that mean when I say during the aging? The simple use of the barrel can be, depends how is do it, and very strong invasive intervention on the taste of wine. I don't know if you remember, 20 years ago, the idea was, I want to drink a wine that is oaky, that smell wood, that have the flavor of wood. This was the idea. It's changing slowly, or probably is already changed. By the way, what do I mean when I talk about the standardization in the world of wine, the standardization of the taste and the smells? By the way, this new photo, this slide that you see now, this guy is Massimo, is a good friend of mine, is the owner of the Enoteca, the wine shop that will provide us the wine for our wine tastings. He's in the movie too, he's in the movie Mondovino. Now he look much older than here. He is much younger. We're talking about 20 years ago. And what he said in this slide, he said there is no difference at all between the wines. This is the standardization. Imagine to wake up one day and find that exists only one recipe for cooking chicken or for making salad, or there exists only one kind of sandwich. How boring, yes. And imagine also that the flavor of the chicken, the flavor of the salad, and the flavor of the sandwich are created to meet the expectations and the palate of the consumers. Consumers who are strongly influenced by food critics, journalists, advertising, and also by the unified flavors. The sense is this: if I know that the best winemakers in the world then work for this fantastic vineyard, they produce a bottle of wine that costs $200, if this wine have these flavors, means that that is the right way. This was the idea, to influence the consumer. To be completely and more clear, until less than 20 years ago, a good part of the wine that was produced by the large producer, the big multinational, but also by the big producer in, I don't know, in Tuscany, in Bordeaux, in Piedmont, in Napa too, and usually artificially created aromas and flavors. So the goals of this producer was to meet the expectation of the international consumers, the international clients, North Americans mainly, but also Russian, Northern Europeans, people with money, of course, because these wines, they were very expensive. All of these expectations, they were created by specialized critics and superstar winemakers like Michel Rolando, and we said before. Do you remember the idea was, what wine do you like? Oh, I really like big, bold, full body, heavy alcohol wine. This guy here in the slide, Alain Chatelet, is the director of the wine department of Bordeaux, said, as part of the movie too, so they need wines that were concentrated and deeply colored. Bold, full body, heavy alcohol, big wine. This was the idea created, completely created by this guru and this big multinational. But let's come back to the laboratory. What do artificially created flavors and aromas mean? Okay, it means things that haven't anything to do with the grapes. And in particular, have anything to do with where these grapes grown, anything to do with the weather, anything to do with the soil, with the terroir. So what we are talking about, flavors created. And if we create flavors, means that this wine can also always be the same years after years. And this cannot be natural. But how do you create flavors? Different flavors in a wine, different flavors than the grapes can naturally create in the wine. How we do this? There are many ways. There are really many ways. I don't know. Depends on the yeast that the winemaker decide to inoculate for the fermentations or during the fermentations. The enzymes for the color extractions. You saw before, they want wine with a lot of colors. And this changed the flavor too. The tartaric, citric, or whatever acid add to the wine. The amount of sulfites add, the temperature during the fermentations, or where is legal, in some countries legal, the addition of sugar or the addition of fructose or wood chips during the aging. Imagine this big vat with wine inside and piece of wood in the wine. To do what? To create the flavor that people believe that they must find in the wine, the flavor and the smell of the wood, with wood chips in the stainless steel. We said before the quantity, we forgot to say when we said how we created the smell and flavors. Another practice is to pump oxygen inside the fermentation vat or inside the aging vat. Michel Rolland was famous for this. Micro-oxygenate, pump oxygen inside the vat. What you do when you do this? You age the wine before the wine is bottled because you oxidize the wine. Another practice that was common till a few years ago, till 15 years ago, because the palate of the people was used to oxidize wine. Oxidize in this way, with the oxygenation in the barrel or the oxygenation in the vat, not in a natural way in the barrel. So it's another method. So imagine that all of this practice that we told before change the characteristics of the wine. It's clear that in this way it's possible to follow a recipe and that the wine will be the same years after years. So there will not be any difference between various vintages terroir. This was another common idea 20 years ago. Oh, I love this wine because it's the same years after years. Well, this is wrong. This is completely wrong. The wine must be different years after years because it's natural. Because what makes the wine is the natural and the rhythm of the natural. So what's happening today? Well, thanks to the French vigneron that we mentioned before, that started 30 years ago, the philosophy of, like we say in slow food and slow wine, of the good, clean, and fair wine is becoming more popular. What does it mean, good, clean, and fair? Of course, must be good. Clean means that must be produced not following this aggressive practice for the production. And fair is related to the price. It's impossible to spend 500 euro on the bottle of wine. So the film Mondovino helped to make the world more aware about these ideas. New consumers, tired of the standardization of the flavors and the standardization of the aromas, have begun to look for different wines. Less elaborate wines, of course, no full body, no bold wine, but certainly truer, more sincere, more strongly related, connected, linked with the territory. This is the idea of the new consumer today. Talking about the terroir, which one is the idea? The idea is, this is Radda. This the slide is this photograph is taken near Radda. Is a Chianti, is the Chianti Classico area. So the idea is that if I drink a Chianti Classico from here, from Radda in Chianti, the wine must, first of all, let me think about the territory of Radda. Must help me to think about the land where the Sangiovese used to produce this particular Chianti is planted. And then, much less important, at the end, I can also appreciate the style of the winemaker. But the winemaker must be able to let the wine to talk to me about the territory and the land. So the territory, the grape, the climate, the altitude, what the French call terroir, has become much more important. And now we are talking about a totally different idea from the mainstream ideas of 90s and 2000. The point is, this is not a terroir, no? The first one, Chianti Classico, Radda, 600 meters on the sea level. Here, caused by the sea, the blue line at the end of the landscapes here is the Mediterranean Sea. The soil is rocky, is dry, it's sandy. So the wine produced here cannot taste like the wine produced here, cannot taste like the wine produced here. This is Castellina and Chianti. This is the Castle of Monte Fonterutoli. So this is the terroir. We talk about terroir when we talk about this stuff. Another example to be completely clear. How many times we heard phrase like, I don't like Merlot. Oh, there is also a movie, an American movie, then at one point somebody they start to say that the Merlot is not good. Well, which Merlot do you not like? Grown where? In France, in Tuscany, in Sicily, in Piedmont, in Napa? Which vintage? Organic or not organic? Fermented in which container? Stainless steel, wood? Aged in which container? Or, this is Chianti Classico area. I don't like Chianti. Well, Chianti Classico, Colli Piesani, Aretini, Fiorentini, produced by which wineries? Which vintage? Is 100% Sangiovese or is a blend? 80% Sangiovese and 20% of other red variety. So all of these things change the wine. To lose this standardized way of thinking about wine, we must consider 3 points. Where, when, how. Where the grapes grow, so the territory, the soil, the altitude, etc. When, vintage. How is irrigate, is not irrigate, is fertilized. What kind of spray they spray on the leaf to protect from parasites. All of these things we need to think when we think about wine. Each of these points, where, when, how, change the characteristics of the grapes. And if they are not extremely manipulated in the cellar, these characteristics, they will be reflected and be perceptible in the wine, creating what? A unique wine. This is Massimo, again, from the wine bar, Enoteca Scali. Then he said, there are no super Tuscans, only global wines are the same, where 20 years ago, till 10 years ago, was completely true. And unfortunately, still a little bit true, still a little bit true. I call Massimo, by the way, probably for these strong ideas, the Taliban of wine, because if you go in his store and you just ask for a generic Super Tuscan, he said, I don't have any, so there are many other wine bars you can go in another place. So is why I call him a Taliban of wine, but he's a fantastic guy. What I want to say is that, unfortunately, this is from my point of view, many of these movements of organic, biodynamical, natural wine lovers that appear in the last 15 years have become a little bit too extreme, Today, there are millions of consumers that they go crazy for the so-called natural wines. Do not misunderstand me. Some of them are incredibly good, are fantastic, but many, unfortunately, are not drinkable, actually. So what does it mean? It means that wine is not good just because it's natural. We always must keep in mind that the winemaking process is not a natural process. Grapes in natural process make or grape juice or vinegar. Then is the end of the process of the grape juice. Why? If you do not want the acetic bacteria to transform the wine and the vinegar, we must stop the acetic bacteria somehow. Just as we must stop the Brettanomyces bacteria, otherwise the wine will smell like cow manure. Really, it's the smell that Brettanomyces create in the wine, cow manure. Stopping these bacteria, stopping this transformation, require using additives. And this is not a natural process. So the right way, in my idea, in my opinion, is found in the middle, as always. The use of chemical, for example, like here in this slide, a moderate quantity of copper sulfates in the field to prevent mold on the grapes, on the vines, well, is often necessary. The secret is to use these products or these tools. Tools can be the barrel, for example, can be the barrels. The barrels is a fantastic tool that, if it's used to improve the quality of the wine, is a fantastic instrument. But if it's used to change the flavor of the wine, well, this is a big mistake. So the idea is help the grape to express itself, producing a fantastic wine, creating products that are as original as possible, linked to the territory, and of course, they must be good in flavors and aroma. So one last thing. An important effect created by this movement that fight against the standardization of the wine is that this movement and these new consumers, because there is a large number of new consumers that change idea about the mainstream of the beginning of 2000. So this new consumer force even the larger producer to rethink their production practices. Many of these large producers have begun to combine their standard production with a more natural approach production for other wines, making great wines that are not constructed in the cellar with unique organoleptic characteristics. So thanks to this movement, thanks probably also to the movie Mondovino, also the big producers in Italy, in particular in Tuscany, they start to change their approach. So at this point, Massimo said, no need to say more. At this point, I know everything seems more difficult. So what do I ask at the wine shop staff when I go to buy a bottle of wine? If asking for a Chianti or a Super Tuscan is in fact wrong because they are all different. How do I know what to ask for? Well, it is impossible to say. This is a question that is impossible to answer. But a good rule, and is my rule, is to choose wines produced by small or very small wineries. Choose producer that make a few bottles, not that produce millions of bottles. We don't want that stuff. Small quantity of bottles. Or buy my slow wine book, for example, that can help to suggest the wine that are produced in the right way for us. But in my opinion, the best things is always the same. Visit the wineries themselves, create a connection between the consumer and the producers. So if you decide, guys, to come to Tuscany, well, it's a good idea to visit some vineyard and make a direct connection with the producer if we like the wine, if you like the wine. Or, for example, create a consumer network like our wine club could be, for example. We will taste, talking about the wine club, for example, we will taste all of the wine chosen by me and by this guy Massimo, then is the owner of the Onoteca Scala in Volterra, La Cantina di Beppe. So all of these wine are expression of their unique terroir and are made by interpreting the grapes and not following a recipe in the cellar. Okay, guys, I know it's late. I don't want to talk too much about this topic. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. What I want to say is that we are very close to reaching the minimum numbers of wine club participants. If you are interested in, please check the wine club page on Guide That Will Buy website. The process is this: first join the club, and then when we will reach the minimum number of participants, I think we need 1 or 2, we will contact you so you can order the wines in times. Okay, so thank you, everybody.